Hello, and welcome to part 2 of this series, where we're trying to make sense of some of the most difficult passages in the Bible. Passages where a God of love appears to command fighting and the complete destruction of other nations. For example, when the Lord your God brings you into the land and has driven out many nations before you, then you must destroy them totally. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. Book of Deuteronomy 7:1-2, do not leave alive anything that breathes. Book of Deuteronomy 20:16-18, they devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old. Book of Joshua 6:21, now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. First Book of Samuel 15:2-3. In part 1, we began by engaging honestly with critics of the Bible. Many point to passages like these and argue that they reveal a darker, less moral side of God, that beneath the language of love is a violent, malevolent deity. Our response was not to become defensive. In fact, we said the opposite. That is a serious accusation. And if it were true, if God were not a God of love, then perhaps he would not be worth worshiping at all. We even strengthened the case by saying, let's not limit ourselves to just a few examples. Let's include all the difficult passages. Let's gather every instance where God appears to command or permit extreme violence. Then we said, fine, let this idea of a dark, malevolent war god become the lens through which we read the entire Bible. Because our principle is simple. Every theory must be tested against the whole Bible, not just selected verses. And when we did that in part 1, we found that this theory quickly fell apart. It fails to account for the many passages where God condemns violence, rebukes his own people for trying to lead through force, and explicitly distances himself from human aggression, whether in the story of Moses killing the Egyptian or Jesus refusing violence at his arrest. So that brings us to the question, is there another theory we could try? In this video, I want to address a second explanation, one that comes not from critics of the Bible, but from Christians themselves. Many Christians argue that these passages are best understood by recognizing that God has two sides. Again, not stated in those exact words, but functionally that's the claim. God is loving, yes, but he is also just. And these violent commands, they say, are expressions of divine justice rather than love. At first glance, this sounds convincing. God must wear multiple hats: judge, lawgiver, moral arbiter. And yes, they argue, God is merciful, but justice still has to be satisfied. This line of thinking often culminates in the idea that Jesus, an innocent party, is punished in our place so that justice can be fulfilled and mercy released. Now, let me be clear. I admire the desire behind this explanation. I've used it myself in the past. It's taught widely in Christian circles, and it genuinely tries to protect God's character. But the question we have to ask, honestly, is this: does it actually work? Why must justice require punishment in order for mercy to exist? Who decided that forgiving without punishment would be unjust? If the argument is that sin must be punished because God is just, then we need to ask, why is punishment the right thing? Why is destruction the necessary response? Because sin can't exist in God's presence. But Israel sins constantly. We're told everyone sins. So why are some destroyed while others are spared? Who decides when justice must fall and when mercy is allowed? And here's the deeper issue. If we say God is both love and justice as two distinct things, we end up implying that some of God's actions do not flow from love, that love is sometimes suspended. But the Bible doesn't say God is merely loving. It says God is love. Not that love is one of his traits, but that everything he does flows from love, including judgment. So why would we diminish that claim, one of the strongest statements in Scripture, just to explain a handful of difficult Old Testament passages? If you want to see what divine justice looks like in the Bible, look at the parable of the prodigal son. A son wastes his inheritance, disgraces his family, and returns home, expecting punishment or rejection. Instead, the father runs to him, restores him, and welcomes him back fully, without any punishment at all. And it's important to notice this. The only person who demands justice in the story is not the father, but the older brother. He's the one who insists that forgiveness without penalty is unfair. Or take the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Some labor all day, others arrive at the very end, yet the master pays everyone the same agreed wage. Again, who objects? Not the master. It's the workers, the ones who believe justice means people must earn more, suffer more, or be rewarded proportionally. And the master's response is telling. Am I not allowed to be generous? Love in this story is what feels unjust. So again, we're forced to ask, when destruction and punishment are demanded, whose idea of justice is that? God's or ours? Dear friends, before we reduce God's character of love in order to explain these passages, let's pause. Let's hold the tension a little longer. Because I don't believe we need to choose between love and justice, or split God's character in two. I believe God remains fully love, even in these passages, which suggests that something else is going on here. So I ask you to be patient and open-minded as we continue peeling back the layers of this fascinating and difficult puzzle. This concludes part 2. Please move on to part 3.